Okay guys, we're going to be doing brakes on this one. Is specifically a 2006 Nissan Xterra SE. If you've watched my video, my oil change video, I've shown you guys already how to jack up a car, so I'm going to skip through that part a little bit, but for the most part I'm going to walk you guys through how to do front brakes, rotors and pads. Not resurfacing, but if you're going to resurface, you're going to take it to the shop, so you can just apply that when you take off the rotor. But let's get started. When you're taking off wheels, you're going to want to start by just loosening them a little bit when the tires are on the floor, the wheels and tires are on the floor, and then after, once you jack up the car, then you can go ahead and take them off completely. Okay? And then you're just going to want to do the same thing to the other side. Now after you've done that, you're going to want to either take them off by hand, or you can use cordless. I mean, they'll probably come off if you keep using the wrench until they get loose, but I'm just going to do it like this, but you can do it by hand. Make sure you put the rim and tire somewhere safe. As you saw, I put one hand at the bottom because usually the weight will make the rim go this way. So just put one hand at the bottom and then just let the weight come down, and then just roll it out easy. Okay, so once you have the wheel removed, there was a wheel spacer on this, so you can go ahead and just remove it. Most of you won't run into that problem, but once you have the wheel off, you're going to be here with the caliper, the rotor, and inside of the caliper are the brake pads. There, on this specific vehicle, it's going to be a 19mm, so you can use a 19mm ratchet. If you have an impact gun with swivels or anything like that, go ahead. As long as it's a 19mm right here and 14 right here. There's two ways to go about it. Some people just take off the whole caliper and then go ahead and replace the rotor, then put it back on, and then take this one bolt of this off. But the easiest way, in my opinion, which does require one extra step, is removing the actual caliper where the piston. This is the actual caliper bracket, and this is the caliper, the actual caliper where the pistons sit. So I take these two 14s off and leave this hanging over there, and I take off the bracket separately and put it back on. Then I piece it all together. So I'll show you how to do that. So first you want to start off by taking off the 14s. Righty tighty, lefty loosey, so we're going left loose. You need to loosen it up and then it'll usually come off by hand. These are galvanized, so you got to be careful with them. You don't want to put too much torque on them or else they might break. Okay, so once you get those 14mm bolts off, those galvanized ones, you're going to want to take this off. It's going to slide over. Okay, you're gonna put it to the side, somewhere where it won't fall off. You gotta be careful with the brake line here. There we go. And you don't want to lose these either. There's supposed to be two on here, but these go on the brake pads. They're kind of your springs. There's two little holes on there, and they go just like that. Just take that off. Your brake pads just slide out. Like that. Okay, now it's time to remove the caliper. Remember, these are 19mm bolts. So you're going to need a 19 wrench, socket and ratchet, or just the ratcheting wrench like this one with the flex head. It doesn't matter. Or your impact gun, as long as it's a 19mm. And there is a lot of force on these, so it's gonna take some force to get it out. There's two, one on top and one at the bottom. And once you loosen them, you wiggle this a little bit and it usually comes off by hand if they're not seized. That's what that's going to look like. You just put this aside. Okay, now it's time to remove the rotor. You want to take a mallet or a dead blow hammer, something plastic or rubber. Technically speaking, you're not going to reuse this usually, but if you're going to resurface it, you're going to want to use one of these. At this point in time, if you were going to resurface your rotors, you would take this off, send it to a shop where they resurface it for you for like about, I don't know, 20 bucks depending on where you live. And then they'll give it back to you for you to put it on the car. So I suggest you use one of these instead of a metal hammer, but it's up to you. If you're replacing the rotors, you can use a regular hammer. Just go ahead and give it a good smack. Don't be scared to give it a good smack. The reason you have to smack it is because it's probably going to be rusted and seized from the whole time that it's been on your car. It's been torqued down by 6 or 5 lug nuts. And you're just doing that to break loose. See right here at the hub. You can see all the rust right there. You could choose to spray WD-40, but you don't really have to, and then yeah, it'll come right off. So once you take off your old rotor, you got your new rotor here. You're gonna want to get a can of brake cleaner. Any brand works, doesn't matter. You can go to AutoZone, you can go to O'Reilly's, doesn't matter. I just happen to have this one. And you're gonna want to spray down front and back on your rotor because it comes with a grease on it. And you don't want that grease on there because then it starts to smoke your you'll get a lot of smoke on your while you're driving down the street when it's overheating. You're still gonna get a lot of smoke because it's a new rotor, but either way, you know, you want to spray it down because then it's gonna get onto your new pads as well. And then you can go ahead and put it on after that. Done. Once you put your rotor on and it's nice and clean, you're gonna get this white film on there. It's fine, that's from the brake cleaner, but it'll go away as soon as you start driving. You want to start putting on your caliper bracket back on. Then you put these in a safe place. Okay, you tighten them on by hand as far as you possibly can, and then you go ahead and tighten it up. You want to go as tight as possible on these without having to strip it. Now you just want to grease up your brake pads. You don't want to put it all over here. You could if you want to, it's not going to hurt the car, but it's not necessary. Where you really want to do it is the sliding points. You want to put anti-seize right here, and right here, and right here. And at this point in time, normally you would change out your hardware. But personally speaking, I like keeping the Nissan factory hardware. It's much better than those aftermarket ones or any of the hardwares that come with the brake pads. Usually the factory ones are gonna be much better than the aftermarket ones. So I usually keep them on there and I just grease these up. Obviously we have some that came with this kit. The only thing I'm gonna be using are the springs. Some people will argue with me, put on the new hardware. I personally don't like doing that. I like the factory hardware on there. The original hardware is better. Unless it's broken, then I will use this. But if it's still on there, I still use the factory hardware, and I just grease this up with like Molykote or copper anti-seize. Okay, so go ahead and grease them up. About the amount that you want to put on there, just a little bit, not too much, and make sure this doesn't actually get onto like the rotor or this surface area. Because it, again, same concept as the reason why we sprayed this down with brake cleaner. You don't want it to get on there. It's just gonna cause it to smoke. Your brakes aren't gonna fail, but it's just, you don't want smoke coming out from there, okay? So at this point, for these, you're gonna wanna put them on just like so. and then push down on it and slide it in. Okay, and then you do the same thing to the other side. Okay. Push down a little bit and then just slide it in. You're just gonna sit there real nice. Okay, so once you reach this point, you could choose to do this before you put the brake pads on, but you're gonna have to press these down. Okay, now there's a lot of ways of doing it. Some people have it on there and use these holes and use a wrench or something while the old caliper's on. I mean the old rotor, sorry, when the old rotor's on, and just press them down, but that's really difficult. And then there's the twist type, you know, but I got this one right here. You could buy this from the Snap-on truck. You could buy them online. It's just a brake caliper, a depressor, or a caliper piston depressor, whatever you want to call it. Point is, you want to try and push these down, okay, until they reach all the way to the bottom point, because you have new pads and you have a new rotor, so the thickness is going to be more, so it's not going to fit over it. So especially on these dual pistons, I start with one side. I push down one side, and then I push down this side to kind of break them loose, and then I do both of them. Reach the bottom. Ready? Once you've depressed it enough, I'll leave it right here, ready to go. You take your springs, right, and you're gonna install it one at a time. Now it has a little hole, this little hole right here on each side, so you're gonna put it like this, and then you're gonna put it on the other brake caliper like that. This is your spring that makes them rebound back after you've pushed on the brake pedal, so that they're not touching all the time. Make sure you hold it down, you put some pressure, because these springs will make the brake pads kind of move or shoot out sometimes. Take your caliper, you slide it on. Then you put your 14 millimeters in there by hand. Once you do that, you take your 14. You don't want to go too hard on these. These are galvanized bolts, okay? They're much softer than the steel bolts, and they may break on you. They're so soft that you won't even feel it when you're breaking them sometimes, and it'll just feel like the bolt's getting looser and it'll just snap. You can go ahead and put your wheel back on. Okay, go ahead, put on your lug nuts at this point. And then before you bring it down, you're just gonna wanna tighten them a little bit. If you're wondering what I'm doing, I loosen and I tighten all my lug nuts in a start pattern, so that way you get an even distribution when you're putting it down. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If it were a 5 lug, it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So start pattern. In this case, this. And then once we bring it down, then we can put full torque on it, and then it should be done after that. After you bring it down, you're just gonna want to torque it down just a little bit. You normally want to do this with a torque wrench, but it's all right. Righty-tighty. Just do it by feel. Not too much. You don't want to strip it. There's good. And again, I'm doing a star pattern, so we put even weight distribution on it. So before you take off in your car, you depressed the pistons and the caliper, so there's gonna be a little bit of gap in your brake pedal. It's gonna feel squishy, it's gonna go down. So the way you do this is before you start the car, before you go anywhere, make sure to pump your brakes. So it's gonna drop down a little bit. You're gonna hear some air. Just keep pumping it until your brake pedal feels nice and hard. Okay, now you're ready to go and test drive. You're done. You're just gonna want to test drive it for a little bit. You're gonna want to break in those rotors. They're gonna get hot. They're gonna look all steamy. You're gonna see steam coming from them. That's normal when you put on new rotors and brake pads. That new metal needs to get hot. You're breaking it in, so go ahead and accelerate, come to a stop, accelerate, come to a stop, so you can break in those rotors real nice. And after that, they're not gonna smoke on you. They're not gonna get hot. But the first few miles that you're breaking them in, they're gonna get nice and hot. They're gonna be steam coming out. Don't worry, that's normal, okay? Other than that, we're done.